Let's go, we're breaking all the limits, stepping up the game, no one ever gonna finish. Hit the streets, left cities on fire, every moment we live, it's a heart's desire. Dreams in the real view, future's looking bright, living for the hustle, shining through the night. Feel the beat drop, it's a rhythm in our soul, with every step we take, we're closer to our goal.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Warrior Vetrepreneur Podcast, recently rebranded from Victory Leaders Lounge. And today we have guest Samuel Deeds here, and he's a Marine Corps veteran. Once a Marine, always a Marine. So I can't say used to be a Marine because he's still a Marine, and a lot of people call him Gunny. But he has an amazing story that he's going to share with us today. Gunny, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Man, I'm great. So I had this whole big long thing that you sent me, and I'm not going to read all that off. So if you wouldn't mind, could you give us an introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, not a problem. My name is Samuel Deeds. I'm originally from Howland, Maine. It's about 30-ish miles north of Bangor. So geographically, it's center of the state of Maine. Population-wise, it's still considered northern Maine. I think the town I grew up in, we might have had 2,100 people, maybe. My graduating class was somewhere around 80 people from 9 different towns. So not a whole lot to do. A couple community colleges in Bangor, of course, the University of Maine in Orono. And I knew school wasn't for me. I was a knucklehead in school. And the only time my grades were good is when it was time for me to play sports. So
you're in good company.
yeah. So I did automotives while I was in high school. And I realized pretty quick that's something I didn't want to do the rest of my life. Playing war or army or whatever you want to call it, growing up as a kid, running around with sticks in the woods, all that good stuff. So I started talking to the recruiters when they came to the school. And I was a little bit older. I stayed back a year or two, just for one, me being a knucklehead and not wanting to do my schoolwork. And then 2, we moved around a lot. Probably when I was in third grade, third grade, and the school system didn't feel as though that I learned enough, so they held me back. So, being a little bit older than my classmates, I'd talk to the recruiters, and the only one that truly paid attention to me was the Marine Corps recruiter. He's the only one that would answer the questions I had. Even though the Army, as a junior in high school, you can go through boot camp and then come back, and then after you graduate high school for the National Guard, go to your AIT and follow on training after that. They just didn't want nothing to do with me. So I was like, you know what, Marine Corps it is. And who doesn't like a good set of dress blues, right? So joined the Marine Corps under infantry option and spent the first, 3 years and change in the infantry, and then re-enlisted, got selected for recruiting duty, spent 3 years here in Northern Kentucky where I live now on recruiting duty. Rotated back off recruiting duty, back to the Fleet Marine Force, back to the infantry, and found myself in Port-au-Prince, Haiti in 2004 when all the civil unrest and everything was going on down there. Deployed to Iraq in 2005 and spent 67 wonderful days in country before I came home. During that time, I was exposed to 2 different IED blasts that the second one overly sent me home. And at the end of the day, it cost me my career. The Marine Corps allowed me to stay in for another 6 years, but I had to make a lateral move to a different job field other than infantry. So I went and worked over with the V-22 for 5 years. And I was stressing the Marines out so much that they made me the squadron gunny, whatever that is. So basically, whatever the sergeant major needed, whatever the CO needed, I took care of, all the medical, all the dental, all the knuckleheads that were rotating out or were on, some type of medical or legal hold or anything like that. And then started a med board process, I want to say in 2009. And then 2011, it came around, and 2 weeks later, I retired. So I served for a little over 14 years, all active duty time frame. And then, deployed to Japan, Korea, Greece, Haiti in 99 and 04, and then into Iraq. So accomplished a lot in that short career. And then got out and just had no sense of purpose, no sense of direction, didn't know what I was going to do. Started a job within a company that caters to the Fortune 500 companies as security. Thought I was going to like it. I was on the job maybe 2 weeks and they already put me in a training role. And then I got written up for giving somebody a threatening look. I'm like, I didn't even say anything to the dude. I just looked at him. So called the wife. I'm like, hey, do I need this job? She goes, no, we'll go paycheck to paycheck with your disability, but no, we don't need it. So I came home and then I sat home for 2 years doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And then I started getting involved with nonprofit work. One of the organizations that no longer exists, their main focus is post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, and the veteran suicide rate. And I traveled the nation and did shows that reached globally with them, talking about my life events and my story with my struggles with post-traumatic stress. And we did Barrett Jackson, the only live to date on big network. So your local Fox channel and we kicked off the show on that Saturday and raised $1.1 million in auction plus donations. And that 15 minutes that we were on the stage. Then got involved with another nonprofit and got inducted into their Hall of Fame down in Texas. And everything was for them was what you did while you were in the military. So based off, your military merit and everything like that. And then while I was down there, met a Gold Star dad of a guy that I served with. And he's like, hey, the skydive team has this Warrior Weekend to Remember. Would you like to go? I'm like, if they have a slot, I'll go. But if not, don't have them make a special, slot for me.
Of course.
And they had a slot open, and I was one of the first 27 guys and girls that came through as a Purple Heart recipient for their Warrior Weekend with the one Gold Star dad. Then we met another Gold Star family that was operating the gun range that we were shooting at. And then about a week later, the team was jumping into a local stadium here to me. And one of the guys got in too close behind another guy, lost the burble and lost the air on his canopy and dropped about 20, 25 feet and ended up breaking his back. And the team members were tending to him. And while they were doing that, I can hear like the event coordinators and stuff saying, man, we need to get this gear off because we need to start as soon as they're off and the medical's cleared and this, that. So I jumped over the wall and cleared their gear for them, took it to their vehicle, and then, jumped back over the wall, sat with my family. And then about a week after that, the owner of the team asked me to put in an application. I'm like, no, it's not for me. That's nothing I want to do. I'm going on my 11th season with the skydive team this year. So no, it's great
for that.
Yeah, it's a great deal. And I still to today, I don't think I've put in an application. I sit on the steering committee for the team. I sit on the selection committee for the team, do a lot of PR and, some of the conferences and stuff that I'll go out to and use the skills I learned as a recruiter to help try to sell our product as a premier skydiving team. I mean, we are the largest commercial skydive team in the world. There's about 32 of us on the team, mostly jumpers. So I'd say there's probably 20-ish, 22 jumpers, another 8 to 10 ground support. And then we have at our disposal 3 or 4 pilots that we use for our 3 aircraft that we have. And, if we're too far away from our home base in Middletown, Ohio, we'll lease aircraft and pilot wherever we're at. And we travel the world to do this. I take off in about a month and a half, 2 months, I guess, to Japan to perform in Iwakuni, Japan.
Wow. Cool. So that's obviously not what you're doing for a living. And I know I met you interviewing for something else. So, I mean, what are you involved with now specifically?
Yeah, so I still do the team stuff. That is my job, if you will.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm 100% disabled by the VA and Social Security. So because of the result of the March 20th blast, I've had 45 surgeries. Some of them minor stuff to remove shrapnel deep in muscle. Others go to as far as, realigning my anatomy, my internal organs, and, disc replacement and stuff like that. So yeah, the Team Fastrax is my seasonal job, if you will, because it's hard to jump in the winter.
Yeah.
It gets a
I
little
wouldn't want to
cold.
do that either.
Yeah. So we'll kick off our season here in the next couple weeks, and then we'll go all the way to the end of December. So we get about a month and a half, 2 month stretch that we're not doing anything. Our season will kick off a little slow, and then we'll pick up from there. But I do work with a lot of different nonprofits still, or organizations that help raise funds for nonprofits. But I am also the co-host for the Homefront Sit Rep podcast with Willis. We do live on Sunday, Monday night, and then we do a tip of the spear where we bring in a bunch of different veteran podcasters to talk about current events, what they have going on with their shows, and just to catch up and build our network and build the people that are like-minded like us to have a little bit of camaraderie, and we can let loose a little bit. So
Yes.
we had our podcast last night, and I think there were 8 of us on there at one point in time. So great conversation, great flow.
Yes, I agree. I was, as you know, I was there, so that was an excellent time. But so you've had a pretty significant, what I would consider to be a challenge, transitioning from the military to civilian life. What do you think your biggest challenge with all of that was, or maybe even is?
I mean, honestly, I think the big part for me, because my transition is a little bit different than if I would have stayed 20 or 30 and got out, right? So if I would have been able to stay in, I would hit my 28-year mark this year. But going through the med board process, I didn't know that I could pause that process wherever they were and then have them restart it. So I would tell them, stop. I have to have a surgery. Just stop what you're doing. Well, every time I did that, it would restart the entire process all over again. So the verbiage that I used of stop instead of pause hindered me from coming home sooner than I should have. But from the time my med board came back to the time that I actually got out was 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks, even though it was a 2-year process, I truly only had 2 weeks to transition.
Mm-hmm.
So, leaving as an E7, as a gunnery sergeant who has led, trained, mentored Marines basically my entire adult life. Now I'm coming home to nothing because I couldn't prepare for a job. I couldn't job hunt because I didn't know when I was going to get out. I did take the test for the Boone County Sheriff's Department here, did fairly well. And then when it came time to do the physical aspect, I pulled a muscle in my back and I couldn't do that. But I was still on active duty. And, the sheriff at the time was like, hey, when you're ready, just let us know and you can try it out again. And then, surgery after surgery after surgery. And, it's 44, 45 surgeries, but it's probably 3 times that many trips to the hospital or hospital stays for bacterial infections and stuff like that I have no control over. And then, I ended up sepsis and in the hospital. And every time that happens, it's 4 to 6 days in the hospital. So I think my biggest piece was not having the funds right away to support my family. I have a wife and 2 kids. And when the money did start coming in, it wasn't to the level of what everybody said it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those who retire, you get your retirement pay and then you go to the VA and you get your VA pay. So you can get concurrent receipt. For those of us that got medically separated, that's not the case. We get one or the other. So if the pay amount is greater for the Marine Corps, so we'll just say $1,500, right? So we'll say $1,500 for the Marine Corps, but the VA's $1,000. The VA covers that, $1,000 of that $1,500. So you'll get $1,000 from the VA, but then only $500 from the Marine Corps. But if the VA pay is greater, you get none from the Marine Corps. You just get your VA pay.
Yep.
So it was a struggle, and, trying to find something where I was making as much money as a gunny, who'd been in for, 14 plus years, was a real struggle for, I didn't have college degree. The only work experience I had for the past 14 years was the Marine Corps. And even though they tell you, hey, use your non-tangible traits when you get out, that's just going to put you ahead of everybody else. You're right, it does, if you have that degree to back it up, or a degree to back it up. And that's most of the companies want some sort of degree. It doesn't matter. It could be underwater basket weaving. Doesn't matter as long as you have a degree.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard. So, finding something that, one, I liked, and I thought I was going to like the security job, but I just, when I got written up for giving somebody, and it's a coworker, a threatening look, come on now,
A threatening look from a gunny? No way.
Right. I mean, this is my happy face, right?
Right.
But yeah, and then, finding the team, and I love what we do. So the jumpers, the performers, because, it is not a demonstration. We're not out there saying, hey, this is how the parachute works, and this is that, and, science, math, blah, blah, blah. They're actually out there performing with large American flags, or pyro, or sponsorship banners, or streamers, or daytime smoke, or drop down smokes. And, they're putting on a show for whatever crowd that they're jumping for, right? Whether it's the NCAA, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's the NFL, or a golf outing, or somebody's wedding, somebody's birthday, a divorce party, whoever is paying us to jump. I love what we do, because it's inspiring to everybody to see an 1,100 square foot flag up to an 8,000 square foot American flag being flown and landing pretty much on a dime. Right. So they're getting out of the plane at anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 feet and landing half of a football field. So you're talking, a mile up, and who knows how far distance away, right? Because they have to get out upwind.
Yep. And
working their way back to land on their mark, their target. So
what's a performance or game or something that I could look up to find one of their jumps?
Just Team Fastrax. It's
just look up Team Fastrax.
Yeah, so FASTRAX, Team Fastrax. You can look at our webpage. You can look at our Facebook, Instagram. I think they have TikTok. I don't do the TikTok thing. So, but there's a bunch of stuff out there that video wise that you can see, or even on the webpage, you can see like a flag performance, or night pyro, or a day pyro performance and stuff like that. But
okay,
yeah, it's so fun. And then, you're introducing the sport to a younger crowd, right? You're talking about, everybody's like, oh, the flag's not supposed to touch the ground. If you truly read into the flag code, right? So US code 4 is the US flag code. It says it's not supposed to touch the ground, if it's suspended from a rod or a staff. So at the bottom of our flags is anywhere from a 26 to 100 pounds of lead of weight. So safely, for that jumper to jump safely and land on the ground, the flag will hit the ground, but whoever the ground is picks it up and puts it in the bag, and then we take it home and we pack it. So we treat it with reverence, we treat it with respect. And every single performance that we do is dedicated to a fallen service member or fallen law enforcement personnel. So, we did 153 performances last year. 153 of those were dedicated to somebody who had given their life in the line of duty, whether it's in the military or as a first responder.
Man, before you sent me your bio, I don't think I've ever even heard of Team Fastrax, to be quite honest with you. And I'm sure once I go through there, it's going to be surprising, because I'm sure I've watched things that they've done.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, we have a lot of technology that we use it's all made in house. our boss is like a mad scientist. He's like Stephen King, and he dreams up things and then gets them made or makes them. So we're on the cutting edge of our pyrotechnic systems, because it's all made in house. It's proprietary rights. Nobody else has it. We're on the cutting edge of our live feed systems, where one of my guys or girls has a GoPro on their helmet, and as long as I have 5 or 6 miles line of sight with the technology that we have, I can pick up that GoPro footage and we can patch it into network TV or the scoreboard or into your computer, and you can stream it live to, your audience, right? So we'll just say Philadelphia Veterans Parade. They have a laptop sitting there with a standalone Wi-Fi. I can take my feed, put it into their laptop, and they can stream it out on Facebook Live. Right. So there's just so many things that we do that the other skydive teams that are out there, and there's a lot of them, not just your military team. There's a lot of civilian teams out there. But there's stuff that we're doing that they are not, or just can't do, just because our boss dumps a ton of money into what we do, into our gear, into the technology and everything like that. So I'm sure if you've watched any NASCAR over the past, 10 years, most likely it's us jumping in. So a lot of college football the past few years, especially if it's a University of Cincinnati game. I'm not going to name all the other schools that we jump into, because we do have competitors out there, right? But
sure,
UC is where my boss graduated from, and it's very, very technical. So not everybody can do a UC jump.
Okay.
Yeah, not even everybody on our team can do a UC jump.
Really? Okay. Well, we're getting up there in time here, so I would like it if you would talk about the podcast that you co-host on, and tell us a little bit about what the purpose of it is, maybe the mission, and what makes you passionate about doing that work.
Yeah, not a problem. So it is Homefront Sit Rep Podcast. Like I said earlier, we go live on Sunday and Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the last Wednesday of every month, we have that Tip of the Spear Veteran Roundtable. It's kind of weird how I got pulled into it. So the host, David Willis, him and I met at boot camp. He's from Kentucky originally, lives back here now. I'm from Maine originally. So we met at recruit training. Both of us not realizing, because you don't really talk when you're at boot camp, because you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So we end up graduating recruit training, and then we meet up again at the School of Infantry at Camp Geiger in North Carolina, right by Camp Lejeune. We're in the same company there, same platoon there. And then we end up getting sent to 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines together. And we served there for 3 years and change. And then he went to a different unit. I went to a different unit. And then we lost touch. The joys of social media brought us back together. So we've known each other, 28 years, going on 28 years this year. And he's like, hey, I want you to come on and, talk about your life events, your story, because it's pretty impactful. And I was like, yeah, not a problem. Well, then he's like, what are you doing? I need a co-host tonight. So I'd come on and co-host from time to time. And then his full-time co-host had some medical issues and got married, and, the whole life things. He's like, sure. Hey, you're in the off season. Can you do every week? I was like, yeah, I can do every week. That's easy. So that's how that came about. But yeah, so the podcast focuses on veterans, veteran-owned businesses, veteran nonprofits, or a nonprofit that caters to veterans. So basically, we're wanting to tell the veteran story. We wanting to, reach, one person per day to help lower the suicide rate. Right? We all know that it's not 22. I don't care what the numbers say. Having been part of an organization that was one of the main focuses, the study that came out in 2011, like Texas, California, Florida, some of the states that have huge veteran populations were not included in that survey. So that number is up, right? And then, so that's the goal, is to put something out there for somebody that may need some direction, that is looking for a purpose. And if you listening to me run my suck about, how overcoming adversity or finding nonprofit work or whatever it may be helps you out, so be it. What works for me is not going to work for everybody. And that's what we're trying to do is give an outlet to every listener, right? That may need something, whether it's hunting, fishing, podcasting, 3D printing. There is something for everybody, right?
There is.
And I can tell you what worked for me, but you have to find what works for you. And that's why Willis started this, because it is his therapy. That's his release. Me, I go fishing. I just looked at my calendar. I've got 4 major fishing events coming up this year. Actually 5. I just added another one, but that's my reset, and my wife knows that when I go fishing, I come back as a better person.
Okay.
This becomes my happy face instead of, Mr. Grumpy Pants here.
Mr. Grumpy Pants.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, everybody has different life events. You and I could have served in the same unit at the same time, experienced the same thing, but how my body processes it is different than yours, right? So
yes,
the recovery piece has to be different for everybody. You can't have one whole group of, okay, let's bring everybody together and we're going to kumbaya. It just doesn't work for everybody.
No.
So we're trying to get the word out there to as many different podcasters, nonprofits, veterans that are looking for something or want to help the veteran community. And I think that's it in a nutshell.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's very similar to my mission. I'm trying to encourage veterans, especially, that who they were in the military is still who they are now. The rank did not define you. You defined you. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, in my opinion, veterans have the secret sauce, because we have a no fail mission for the mission mentality. And so if given the proper motivation and vision, they can go out there and not be stuck in a civilian job, which most of them, not all of them, but most of them, they're really hard to transition into because they don't understand how we talk. They don't understand how we interact socially and all that other. And I didn't think it would be very different when I got out, but we are different. And it just, people knowing that we were a veteran gives them a different view of us that I guess I really didn't understand, because really we were just these leaders that probably led at a higher level than most civilians do. And not saying that to toot a veteran's horn or nothing like that. It's just, that was part of the job. We had to be trusted in combat. So, I mean, we had to lead and actually create influence, and they don't do that sort of thing in the civilian workforce. Right. Everybody is expendable, and veterans are just weird because we push really, really super hard.
Well, it's, the thing is, I joined, I was probably 19 when I actually went to boot camp, but I had guys that I served with that are 17, right? Yep. Now they're being entrusted with the life of the person to the right and to their left.
Yep.
Corporate America, they're not even allowed to make the coffee.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's what keeps me doing what I do now is we're probably 50-50 of active duty veterans and just, civilian personnel. The team was founded by Army Rangers and SF medic, and it's there. We have structure, right? And a lot of people who serve need some type of structure.
We do.
And if you can't find it, make it. Build your own.
That is sound advice. Now, we're probably going to go about a minute and a half over just because of the question I'm about to ask you. But if somebody wanted to find out more about your podcast or get a hold of you or Willis, how would they do that?
Homefront Sit Rep Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, it's David Willis Jr. Samuel Deeds for me on LinkedIn. I think my photo is my wife and I at a gala from this past Monday. But yeah, everything is Home Front Sit Rep Podcast.
Okay. Sounds good. And everybody who's watching, thank you for tuning in now. And obviously, if you're watching this in the future, I appreciate that just as much. But please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel when you see this there. But the most important thing is to leave a comment in the description here so that we can keep the conversation going. I mean, if you wanted to talk to Samuel, I could definitely forward his information on, or whatever the case may be. But especially if you're a veteran who needs inspiration to move forward, we just need you talking to somebody. So whether it's me or Samuel or anybody else you see on this podcast, make it happen. Samuel, thank you for being a guest here.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go, I just want to say one thing. You're not alone. You still have worth. You still have value. Don't let the dark days win.
Roger that. That's well said. Perfect. Yes. And again, thank you for being a guest here on the show.
Appreciate it.
And everybody who's watching in, thank you. And we'll see you next time.